I had it dated as May instead of the June 27th meeting, so
Okay.
if you can do that, that'd be great, just for the record. I've already changed it in the minutes, but, just so we have a record of it.
So should that be part of the motion to
It-
approve?
It would be a separate motion.
A separate,
Yeah,
okay.
like a motion to approve these minutes,
And
and
then a
then
motion to
a motion
approve?
to approve the correction of
Okay.
the preceding months.
All right. Okay, so let's start with a motion on the minutes themselves. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion for approval.
All right, do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now we need a motion on the correction to the minutes, as was just noted. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve corrected minutes?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the next item on the agenda is the election of officers for the board. There are 3 positions available. We have the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. And generally speaking, unless you want to add to this, Bart, the chair conducts the meetings. The vice chair is the alternate if the chair is not available. And I still haven't really understood what the secretary does, but we have to have that one, right?
Well, according to your bylaws, you do have a secretary. The secretary would conduct the meeting if the chairman and the vice chairman wasn't there. They could also be responsible for taking the minutes if, staff wasn't here, I suppose, but.
Okay.
We tend to do that for the secretary. But
All right. All right, so what we've done in the past, I think unless you think we need to do it differently, we'll go in the same order. We'll start with the chair. We'll seek a nomination. Then once we have the nomination, we'll have a vote. Once that's complete, we'll go to the vice chair, then the secretary, and so forth. So that process still work well, Bart?
Yeah, that's fine. And the current officers are Marty Lehman's the chairman, Brittany Moore is the vice chairman, and Stephen Marlowe's the secretary currently, or has been for the past year. So,
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. All right. Well, I guess we'll start with the chair. Do we have a nomination for a chair for this fiscal year?
I would like to nominate you, Marty, for the chair again.
All right.
And I was going to ask a question. I think Brittany just answered it. You're not term limited, are you?
no.
So there's no rule, there's no stipulation on time.
No.
Sir. Okay.
Oh,
Is now the time to second that? I would second that.
yep. All right, so motion and a second. All in
Do
favor?
second that, not would. I do second.
I'm glad you clarified that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now we need a vice chair.
Well, in the same spirit, I'll nominate Brittany as the vice chair and keep that going.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And now we need nomination for a secretary.
I move to nominate Derek Wright as secretary.
All
We
right,
currently have a secretary, though, sitting.
that's Stephen.
Stephen.
Can I rescind that
Rescind that.
motion?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Stephen Marlowe
Yes.
Correct.
as secretary.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does that nomination and rescinding have to be in the minutes? Because I'd rather not have my name attached to a rescinding.
No.
Yes, it's gotta be in the minutes.
It was never seconded, so. I'll just-
I want to be voted out before I was even.
Yeah, that's oh, man,
Like to serve.
really?
You first.
No doubt.
Maybe next year.
Maybe. All right.
on the minutes, who made the motion in second on this month's or last month's minutes?
I believe I did, or you.
Oh.
I
think
didn't.
Stephen
I
did
motioned for the
for the
minutes.
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 Yeah.
I did on the edit,
Yeah.
the corrected version.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, then we'll move along to the staff report on the wall sign applications approved since our last meeting.
Okay. So we've had a few this past month. Tommy's Water Sports, their wall sign That's up off Outlet Drive. Property that's 2 lots west of Top Golf. It's kind of back in the woods there, but that's what their wall sign will look like. The permit was issued for that. Medic Regional Blood Center, their permit was approved in the past month. That's what it'll look like on the building. 35 North, they were adding the bar and grill to their existing signage. So, and of course they have, it's a corner lot, so they have signs on both frontages. So that's what they're doing. It's what it'll look like on the building during the day. That's what it'll look like at night. The main issue we had to check there is that they had enough leased building frontage space to qualify for, that additional sign area. So they did, and so that's what they're doing. And it's basically the same thing on the Kingston Pike frontage. And there you go. That we didn't have any concern about their lease frontage space on that side. It was the other side we had to verify. Then there's a business called Smoke Shop. It's what theirs is going to look like. And Mind and Body, which is out Kingston Pike heading east. It's down there, kind of close to O'Reilly's, down in that vicinity on the south side of Kingston Pike. And that's it for the wall signs. If anyone has any questions on those, I can try to answer them, but.
Okay, with no questions, we'll move down to the ground-mounted sign applications. And first item would be PGA Superstore, located at 11491 Parkside Drive.
Okay. This is a fairly simple tenant panel. Although they did provide us with 2 options. This is sort of their option A that they originally submitted. We kind of asked them why it was so small, so they provided us with a option B. Staff is going to recommend approval of the option B. It's clearly a lot more visible. It's a lot better use of the space on that sign. I'm not really sure why they ever proposed something that small, but.
Yeah, it seems like option B is a lot more visible for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll motion for approval.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move down to the Farragut Junction Apartments, located at 13120 Royal Palm Way.
Okay, this is a ground sign application for the apartments that are going in there at the corner of Watt Road and Kingston Pike, back behind Little Joe's Pizza. Their
Little Joe's loving it.
Yep, their sign will look like this ultimately. I've been working with one of the principals in the project, one of the owners, to get some additional information, get some things revised. I'm still waiting on a couple of items here. On my comments on the staff recommendations that I sent out, they have selected a new lighting fixture that'll be compliant, so that issue's been resolved. They do need to submit it into our online application software, but we need them to verify that the brick that's going to be used on the base there is going to match the brick that's going on the buildings. That's, just a simple matter of adding a note to the plans that, calls that out for that being done. It's a sign in black and white, give you some of the dimensions. One of the issues that the board needs to discuss tonight and make a determination on is whether or not an address number is going to be or needs to be required on this sign. Staff doesn't really think it does. they're proposing it on the end there. If a number is required, it needs to be on the top of the sign. You know, that's what our regulation standpoint call for. But if you look here, that sign is going to be right in this area. So it's going to be visible off of Watt Road, but the address of the apartment complex is actually off of this drive into the property. The way Knox County addressing tends to do apartment complexes is, you know, when it's large like this and there's going to be a number of buildings, they essentially put private road names on the access drives, like the overlook out off North Campbell Station Road is addressed similarly. So that address number is actually you know, that's the address number on Royal Palm Way. And, you know, from our standpoint, you know, that could be potentially confusing to have that address number on the end of the sign like that, facing out on Watt Road. People, and if we haven't put it on the top of the sign like it would be, then anyone driving north or south on Watt Road is going to look at that number range and think that's a Watt Road address, but it's obviously not. So,
Bart,
you know,
are there other streets within that whole development?
you
Street
know,
names?
I've not gone in and looked at exactly the way all the buildings will be numbered. You know, they could actually have added some internal road names that they'll address each building off.
Big enough to where there could be, but like I drive by there all the time. I live over there. I can't.
I just visited a brand new Knox County apartment complex off Alcoa Highway that each building has a different street name within the development, even though that's not the street that the building is
Doesn't
on.
look quite big enough for that, does it?
It's similar in
big.
size,
Yeah,
though.
well,
Yeah.
it's
So I'm
close.
just wondering if they've named, maybe for 911 purposes, they've named
Right.
each.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how all the addressing is on here. I just know that the complex address and the main address for the property is off that Royal Palm Way. As to whether or not they have additional addresses for the different buildings, I didn't check that.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of have mixed feelings on the way they do the addressing because, you know, I guess it makes sense when you have multiple buildings like this and kind of a lot of routes around within an apartment complex so that either delivery services or emergency services can find it.
But there will be, you're saying the sign is right there.
The sign's going to be
but
here.
There will be a
and-
street sign with that street name, right?
Well, that's a private drive name, so, you know, we're not going to put one up.
But they will, wouldn't they?
Interesting.
You know, they might, I'm not sure.
Wouldn't they want to? I would think they'd,
They might.
but that's not in the plan.
I got a question. I may be reading the plans wrong, but the sign looks like the side with the address is going to go on the same side that all the landscaping is on.
They may have mixed up the north,
And if so,
north-south
then
on
there's
that.
I think a sky pencil that would cover that
Yeah,
address.
yeah, that wouldn't make a lot of sense the way they did that, but, you know, they may have just put the address on because they know we require them. When I did speak to one of the owners, you know, they're fine not putting the address on. So, you know, but if we want an address on the sign, you know, according to our code, it needs to be at the top here. It either needs to be here or it needs to be here. And the problem with that is anyone coming down Watt Road is going to be able to see that address and may think that, you know, that's a Watt Road address as opposed to
Bart, the apartment complexes that we've approved recently, I know the one across from Kroger, their sign was going to be on Brooklawn, I think.
Yeah.
And so we said no, their other sign may have a number, but do you know if the other apartment complexes, I think we've
The one at
not done numbers.
Yeah, up at Overlook, we don't have a number on that because that property address is not a North Campbell Station Road address. It's, you know, their clubhouse and their office is actually addressed off an internal street name, you know, like you're saying, within the apartment complex. The one over, you know, that's gonna be off Brooklawn there, Some of the buildings are actually addressed off Brook Lawn. Some are, they're off, I think it's gonna be like Biddle Farm Boulevard or something. That's the road that's gonna parallel Brook Lawn back behind there. Now that's a little different because those buildings are all gonna be, accessible to pedestrians off of those streets, and there will be an access door into it. So, we didn't do the main business sign there that's gonna be by the clubhouse because there's gonna be no drive into it, and we thought that, that might be, a little confusing, because all the actual vehicular access is back behind that complex. But, and we actually reached out to the developers of that and asked them what they thought about, that addressing scheme to make sure they were comfortable with, delivery services being able to, find residents and that sort of thing, and they were. So, that's going to be kind of unique because it's in that town center area. All the buildings are going to be pulled up, close to the streets, and there's also going to be pedestrian access in and out. So, but in this case, they did put that on. I honestly wasn't even thinking about that is probably facing landscaping and facing internal, because honestly, it wasn't in the right place. If there's going to be an address number, and then there was a question is, does there even need to be an address number? So I think that's a determination the board needs to make as to whether or not we should waive that requirement.
Well, I don't think it makes sense to have that number on this sign without the street name visible in some way so you understand that's for that other street.
Yeah.
And if we're not gonna have a street name anywhere
You gotta have a street
at
name.
all,
Yeah, you gotta have a street name.
then it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think it just adds confusion,
Yeah.
which, to me, that is already confusing when you talk about a private drive with a street name.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But that is apparently the way Knox County is addressing a lot of apartment complexes.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I would only think it makes sense if there's a street name.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Agreed.
Street sign. Yeah, gotta have
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I don't, why wouldn't they?
I mean, from the, standpoint of, if I knew that I was looking for that apartment complex and I saw that sign, I would know to turn in there and,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
That's what they're relying, I mean, obviously, that's,
exactly.
yeah.
Okay.
But I have learned with a business on Kingston Pike that it should be pretty obvious. You gotta, that could be confusing to some.
Yes, I
So
do
it's,
know.
it blows our mind constantly. People, it's right there.
And then the last thing that I was waiting on for this, and they were gonna correct, but I didn't get the correction yet, is just some verification that, that this is a minor thing, but, there's a little grade shown on this drawing, and the 6-foot max height is sort of on what is gonna be the short side of the sign, and the base has to be 2 foot. So I just asked them to clarify that, the 6-foot maximum height will be from the highest part of the sign to the lowest grade surrounding the sign, and the 2-foot required base will be measured, at the lowest point of the base. So, subject to those minor corrections on this, and with your input on the address number not being required because of confusion on this one, staff can recommend approval of it.
As far as the address number not being required, should that be a separate motion or just part of the subject to
Just make
that
it
we've
part of the
agreed to?
motion. Yeah,
make it
that's
part of the
fine.
motion? What about the landscaping around it? We haven't had
know,
a chance to
I-
discuss that yet.
I mean, it's compliant. It doesn't have to be equally distributed around. It just has to have 6 shrubs within 7 foot of the base, and all of those shrubs are within 7 foot of the base. So,
Yeah, everything looked good on it. And then the sign itself was very legible.
yeah, I think so. So it'll ultimately look like that.
All right. Any other questions, comments about this Farragut Junction apartment sign? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the lighting plan being verified, the brick being used as verified, the sign height is verified as max of 6 feet on the tallest side, and that we waive the use of the numbers on the sign.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're going to move down now to Lazy Days RV, located at 11730 Snyder Road.
Okay. This is sort of a unique sign. When I first saw the application, I got with Mark on it. But they are requesting approval to reface their existing sign that's down here along the interstate. This sign up here along Outlet is actually not within the town of Farragut. The corporate limits are a little funky out there, so it looks very much like a billboard structure. That type of signage wouldn't probably be permitted right now under our existing regulations, but this was approved as a special exception, sort of a use on review type of thing, a number of years ago by the Town Board of Zoning Appeals. So, we consider it a permitted sign, and so they're refacing a permitted sign. Part of that original approval was there were a couple of other signs on the property that were eliminated. So the town was able to eliminate a few signs and then allow this one. So, there was a little explanation I wanted to give you on it, and I included at least one of the letters, but we have all the paperwork from when, the applications were made to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and, the minutes on when it was approved and whatnot. So they're really just applying to reface an existing permitted sign structure.
Wouldn't that just be considered regular maintenance and not required permitting?
Well, under our regulations, maintenance is defined, and the sign has to pretty much look exactly the same, and they're renaming this. It used to be Buddy Gregg's, so, yeah.
Well, the sign's already up there.
Yeah, the structure's there, and again, it was, the structure, the size of it, the height of it, all of that was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals a number of years ago.
What
So,
I'm saying, though, this Lazy Days is presently over the Buddy Gregg.
yeah. But that's not what the sign looked like prior to this. I mean, they may have put it up, but it hasn't looked like that in the past. Yeah. So they're essentially putting a new sign base on, and that's the same as any other sign, like ground sign here in town. If even if it's the same business, if they rebrand and they reface the sign, we treat it like a new sign permit. It's maintenance is, they go in, they paint the sign, they it's maybe faded, and they put a new face on it that's exactly the same. But any changes, we consider it to be a new sign that has to get a permit.
So we're considering the front of that a sign face?
Well, that whole now open Lazy Days RV on both sides is essentially refacing that sign.
So for any other large sign that may not be in compliance with what's in our codes now, because this would not be allowed now, they have to bring it up to code. So how does that apply to this?
Well, because again, this was a special exception that was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So it's permitted, I mean, we have the signs that are out there, like the large pole signs, like they do reface those. If it's one that is the right distance from the town and all that, it's just, if you don't meet the requirements, which the specific distance from the interstate exchange and don't have, the height limitations. We can't add any more signs, but this one, I didn't do the measurements. I don't know if they could have an interstate pole sign there or not, but, regardless, it was permitted, so it can remain.
As long as
So-
they're not rebuilding it then. So like
Yeah,
the
well,
one down here in, like,
That's
West
what I was
End,
about to say.
That's
It's,
giant, they can reface
Yeah.
each one of those
Yeah.
signs and add
Right.
new businesses,
Exactly.
but they can't, as long
Yeah.
as it's not affecting the
Yeah,
structure of the sign.
Yeah, for instance, if they came in and they wanted to double the size of that or increase the height of that, then the answer would be no, because the Board of Zoning Appeals, when they approved it, back when they did it, they approved a certain height, a certain sign face area, so they have to keep those parameters in place, because that's what was approved. But in terms of, here, a business name change, they're putting a new sign face up.
Right, okay, thanks for the clarification.
and while,
Back when the town was doing, they were trying to get rid of a bunch of signs and so allowed certain, if you look
Yeah.
at the history there.
And it's the same like on a smaller ground sign along Kingston Pike. If they don't have the full 2-foot base, we don't make them rip the whole sign down and rebuild a 2-foot base. We, accept the fact that, that's an existing sign structure and let them reface it. But now, because it's an existing sign structure that we might not permit today, we don't allow them to increase the size of the sign face or stuff like that, but they can update the sign face. And, so we're just essentially treating this the same.
while we're on this line of topics, the town does have a regulation. If a sign is put up prior to approval, right, you have a way of kind of handling that, right? Can you
We just
explain
double
that?
fee. Yeah. We just double fee the thing.
Or if it's not if it's something that wouldn't be approved, they would have to change it
Yeah.
in
Yep.
addition to a double fee.
Yep.
Right.
But in this case, there's, staff can recommend approval of it.
Just a thought on this one, will they have, since this is now open, is there a plan to remove that or come back and change it at some point? Do you know?
Remove-
I mean, it says now open, Lazy Day RVs, like it's a new,
Yeah,
at some point that
if they want to, they'll just have to apply for another permit.
Same
and-
process,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, but it's a good point. I wonder if it's not just going to be a tearaway sort of thing, like
Right,
That could be, it could.
a label, almost like a sticker.
It could be, well,
Vinyl.
I was kind of-
Vinyl,
checked
so
it
they-
out today, and it's
so they
just-
can probably
just
put-
a vinyl slap on it.
Take that off.
Yeah, so they could probably just peel that off.
Without having to go through the process.
I guess we
Would
could
there be
make
a
them come
need
in
for
for a
it?
permit, but I'm not sure we'd
Why would,
worry about that.
yeah.
just questioning that. We had that question with Casey's, I think, too, they had.
That's right.
something
Yeah.
Pizza, or no?
Some
no,
coming
no,
soon
that's
or
right.
something.
Coming soon,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would-
Yeah.
But, if they decided they wanted that extra space or to
Yeah.
put something
Then
else
they
up
would,
above that,
yeah,
then they
yeah.
would have to come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll motion for approval.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second,
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we'll move down to the other business and the continued discussion about the Adopt a Stream cleanup program. Looks like
Okay.
you have some new information for us.
Well, not a lot. Want to get some input, whether or not you've all thought some about, what you might want to do in terms of a date. I did check, there were some questions about whether or not there might be some additional manpower available to help clean up this section of stream. I'm Kate Myers, the student representative. She, mentioned there could be students that want to, participate in that and get volunteer credit for it for the National Honor Society. We can definitely do that. And we have a standard release form for that. So I've been in contact with her. I've let her know that. I asked her to show that form to, their advisor for that, that volunteer program. So there may be some manpower available from that. I also spoke to Lori Saul, who's our stormwater coordinator. She said that's fine, and also members of the Stormwater Advisory Board might also be available to help do some cleanup. But no promises, but there there are options to do this. So for the new members or for members who haven't done a cleanup out there, this is the VRB's adopted section. Starts at the park and ride lot area there behind the liquor store, out there on North Campbell Station. And it runs south along the creek and there's a greenway that sort of parallels that down to Grigsby Chapel Road. So that's the section that'll have to be cleaned up.
Well, I think as we said last month, it needs to be cooler weather.
Yeah,
When the snakes and other things are dormant.
absolutely. You don't want to do it on a day like today.
No.
No.
That's why I
So-
think it's usually been 1st of November, end of October, right somewhere when it starts getting cold.
I just didn't know whether you all had any ideas about, what weekends you might like. I could always send out an email to, with some various dates, and then,
Let's do that, yeah.
people could vote on them, or, we could, try to get some collective input as to what might be the best date. I
I
just,
like that idea.
Yeah, that's good.
I could suggest a few, either towards the end of October. I printed out the UT football schedule.
God's got it going.
I got that right there.
But I was looking at
You'll,
that in horseshoe.
Just in
Yeah,
case there's
you'll-
any preferences, any games you want to
yeah.
particularly plan around. I don't want to get too close to the, Thanksgiving holidays, because people could potentially be out of town. There could be issues there, and I guess it could get cold fast, and,
Well, don't worry, Georgia's the weekend before Thanksgiving anyway, so.
yeah.
What's
That's at
the,
home.
Yeah.
what's the
People
first
may want to
Saturday
drown
in
themselves in the
November?
river, in the creek after that, right?
So it's homecoming, so that'll
Oh.
probably be a 4 o'clock kickoff would be my
Yep,
guess.
probably be an afternoon, yeah.
A little bit.
Typically
I don't know,
homecoming's
last-
around 4.
4, that's
Couple of
usually the
them
4
lately
o'clock
have
game.
been
Yeah,
noon.
I know.
unfortunately, the schedule didn't have the kickoff times on
No.
it
They
yet.
won't have the kickoff times. They'll be flexed and decided
We'll get
once
Yeah.
the games are played. So
Yeah,
you really
so-
don't have kickoff times through September right now.
Yeah, so that, the times of the games in October and November, I don't really know right now.
No.
So,
But-
obviously, we'd like to try to avoid like an early game, like a 12:30 kickoff game.
Well, fortunately, this year there shouldn't be too many 12:30 games of the bigger games. Those are going to be some in November. There'll be some bigger games. So Tennessee this year should have that. A lot of those 4 to 7 o'clock kickoff times, prime time hours. But
And are y'all thinking about like a Saturday morning to do this, or?
That's what we've done in the past, and
Okay.
that typically works well.
Okay, well, if it helps, I can send an email out with, like a few potential dates, and then everyone could just, look at their schedules and look at football schedules and see if there's any other conflicts, and you can sort of, send back like a response, first, second, third choice or something like that, or first or second choice, and then, see who can do, or where we can get the most members, and then, and that'll be good then too, because once we pick a date, I can coordinate more with Lori and see if the Stormwater Advisory Committee staff wants to, or I should say members want to participate at all, and then, we can also get the date out to the school and see if any of the students want to, get credit for it, so.
All right. Anything else we need to cover tonight?
That's all I had.
All right. Well, in that case, meeting adjourned. See you next month.
Siesta